hopefully by the end of today, we will be pretty much right at the peak of the book. We haven't really talked about it much like during week to week discussions, but like we did talk about in the first week or two how Ezekiel does have a somewhat chiastic structure. And hopefully by the end of this week or next week, we will be kind of on the other side of that chiasm. I don't want to necessarily go into like too much context, but we've been going through Ezekiel. Ezekiel is living in he is a priest who is living in Babylon at this time, and this is after the first couple of deportations, so this is before Jerusalem itself will be destroyed. And so right now we have this priest named Ezekiel who's in Babylon, but he is primarily interacting with other Jews around him who are also in exile. And we've had a couple of these different interactions with God to where he showed up in different visions where it was like he was in like a sort of like mobile temple that appeared to him, where it was like God's glory was in this essentially chariot. It was like a mobile temple. And he's been kind of tasked Ezekiel with being a watchman, to where he is supposed to warn the people about the issues of their hearts, because so far Israel still has not learned their lesson yet. And so pretty soon, and actually as we're going to get into today, we're going to get into the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem. And so the end is not, or not the end, but there's been a couple different themes we've been tracing throughout the book. Two of them that I feel like have come up a lot is this theme of Israel being both unclean but also unholy, to where the two main sins that we see prop up like a lot is specifically bloodshed and idolatry. And I would say that those kind of come to represent those two things, to where the people of Israel have both stained their hands with blood, that have also profaned God's name, and they're not therefore worthy to be in God's presence. Hence why God left the temple, because he could not be in the presence of people who were both unholy and also unclean. And as we've been going through, again, a lot of the language and different parables and metaphors, there's a lot of like priestly language throughout the book. And so we've been seeing that. We're going to see more of it. So just keep that in mind as we go through, keeping in mind that the author is a priest, and there is a lot of more priestly language going on, Levitical language, etc. Is there anything else you wanted to add for context? I mean, there's always more we can add.
I think the only thing I would add is that you can just tell that things are building to a head at this point.
Yeah.
To where like the most recent chapters, we ended last week, or I guess most of last week was spent covering chapter 23, which is just this like very intense chapter where God uses stronger language than we've probably encountered anywhere else in Scripture so far.
Yeah.
And it's just to get the point across to the people of Judah that they've really messed up. And so you have the imagery of like, the two sisters, which is Israel and Judah. They're called Ohola and Oholiba. And basically just saying that Judah was supposed to learn from Israel's failure, but instead they learned the wrong lesson. And basically they had like this bad example of an older sister, and they chose to make all the same bad decisions and then multiply the bad decisions and make it even worse.
Yeah.
And so God uses this very extreme language and says, I'm going to expose you for all your bad decisions, and I'm going to make the nations know that you really messed up. Then you, like, basically, I think, was it last chapter where it culminated with, like, the imagery of like, them being stoned to death?
Yeah.
Right?
The assembly.
Yeah, the idea is that, so, like, according to the Torah, if you had a woman who was out committing adultery, you would gather together the assembly and they would stone her to death. But now it is Israel and Judah who are the women committing adultery, and the nations are the assembly stoning them to death. Mm-hmm. And so God is implementing the nations as his, like, hand of judgment.
Yeah.
And so
that is true. There's also been that theme of, and that was also the case in a couple of other books we've gone through, to where God describes Babylon as being his agent of justice, despite them being wicked.
Yeah.
And there is that kind of weird dynamic going on, to where we also read last week how whenever this happens, whenever God's going to expose Israel, they're going to get mocked, and they're going to like face a lot of like mock and derision and stuff.
Yeah.
But then in this next couple of chapters, we're going to see God condemning the nations for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
To where it's like God said it was going to happen, but then he still holds them accountable for it.
I have to say, very similar structure to Jeremiah as well, where Jeremiah, for the first part of the book, he goes after Jerusalem and condemns them, and then he starts, maybe it's a little later on in Jeremiah, but then he also starts going like a message about Ammon, a message about Babylon, a message about Moab, so on and so forth. So it's a very, I find that similarity between the two books. Very similar pattern.
It's true. And likewise, Babylon too. Babylon's called his agent of justice essentially, but yet he does hold them accountable for their pride and for taking credit for doing what they do. One last thing we can probably mention, just because it will be a very similar, it has some similar imagery to what we're going to go to in this chapter. In chapter 22, we also had the imagery of Israel being dross, to where we talked about how dross was this sort of like impurity in metal, and it said that like basically the way you remove dross is by you have to put even higher heats to the metal to burn it out. And so in the same way that Israel is dross, God has to kind of expose them to the extreme high heats of what ends up being like the destruction of the temple, the city, and going off into Babylon to discipline them, to make them into a better nation.
And then we also discussed how when all the dross is removed, there's not going to be a whole lot left.
Yeah, but ultimately it's to purify the metal.
Yes.
And we're going to see some like kind of similar stuff going on in this chapter as well. This whole idea of like kind of melting away impurities. Anything else y'all want to mention before we hop in?
No, let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. Chapter 24. I'm just going to read the very small set because this is another chapter, kind of like a few chapters ago, where we had a small parable, then a longer explanation.
Yeah.
I just want to go ahead and read the first 5 verses just to get the parable. Maybe we can just discuss that without trying too hard to exactly fulfill the parable, and then we can talk about the way we can read the explanation of it too.
Right.
And the word of Yahweh came to me in the 9th year, in the 10th month, on the 10th of the month, saying, Son of man, write the name of the day, this very day. The king of Babylon has laid siege to Jerusalem this very day. Speak a parable to the rebellious house, and you shall say to them, Thus says Lord Yahweh, Put on the pot, put it on, and also pour water in it. Put in it the pieces, every good piece, the thigh and the shoulder. Fill it with choice bones. Take the choicest of the flock, and also pile wood under the pots. Make it seethe vigorously, and boil its bones in it.
So here we have an image of, there's a pot. They're essentially boiling meat, and they're boiling like the choicest piece of meat. They're like, pick the nicest bones, the nicest cuts of meat from the nicest animals in the herd, and then boil it. And it also says, take wood, build a fire for the pot, and you're essentially just boiling choice meat, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally you wouldn't want to boil like the finer cuts of meat, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I'm not necessarily sure if that's what it's getting at. I think it's more so just the emphasis is on the fact that they're using the best of the best to make this like basically stew.
Yes.
Versus it being like I don't think at face value it's meant to be a negative thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. That's the way I would take it.
Well, yeah, because I mean, choice meat. The reason why it's choice is because you want to eat it.
Yeah. So it seems like in this parable, it's not inherently a bad thing. It's like saying let's make the best.
Well, okay, it's just saying like let's make the best thing we can. Okay.
Yeah. So just rewind just a tad bit. When does this take place?
In the 9th year, in the 10th month, on the 10th day.
Okay. And roughly when would that be? Like in relation to the rest of the book?
9 years after the beginning of the book, right? Is that correct?
I believe the book starts with the 5th year of the
exile. The 4th year.
The
Okay.
5th year of like not the exile, but the 5th year that they've been in Babylon.
So this would be year number, roughly 9th year, 10th month. So we're almost at year number 6.
Yeah. So
considering we're on the 10th month of Ezekiel's ministry here.
Yeah. So chapter 1 starts off by saying in the 5th
Yeah.
year, and then chapter 20, I believe, said the 7th year.
Yeah. So it's 4 years since Ezekiel started his ministry. He's
Yeah.
had a packed ministry, right? All this stuff
Yeah.
because also for like 2 of those years he was just like laying on his side. Poor guy.
Yeah, that's true. That was only like a few verses for us.
Yeah.
That's a long while for
2
him.
years for him.
Like all the stuff that he's saying, he's just saying it from his side.
And say, I guess at this point he's like 34, huh? If he started
Yeah.
his 30th year,
Yeah.
he probably feels twice that.
Yeah.
Twice that old now.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if there was anything significant about the month, but I don't think there was anything. If it was like, cause I think the Day of Atonement's like the 7th month in the 10th.
I'm assuming it's just an actual timestamp for when the siege literally began, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you find anything about the day, or is that just another timestamp?
In this chapter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just, because then you get to verse 2 and 3, or verse 2, it says, write the name of this day, because this is when, we have to also remember, just like I think it was last week, these are all things that like they wouldn't have heard about yet. Like, word isn't exactly traveling yet, you know.
No,
how it doesn't
they're not picking up phone
Yeah,
calls.
they didn't have like Newsmax or Fox News or CNN to turn on and be like, oh, look what's going on in Jerusalem. Like nowadays, we can know what's going on in Jerusalem literally right now.
Yeah.
They live so much closer to Jerusalem than we do, but back then it's like no.
So in a way, it adds like another level to it. Like I'd almost say it's like maybe, I know Ezekiel's already given some signs, but I would say this is in a way another sign of being like, hey, this is happening, and then a couple days later, news is going to come there and be like, oh crap, like that actually happened.
Yeah, I would say something along those lines of, it isn't technically predicting the future, but like in a sense, it is kind of like prophesying a little bit. It's
Yeah.
like,
A little bit, yes,
So-
not to an extreme case.
Yeah, it seems like the date would correspond to our like January 15th, 588 BC.
okay.
Just because keep in mind when it says 10th month, it's not counting from January; it's counting from, I guess, March.
So they're going
Yeah.
on a Jewish calendar,
Yeah.
assuming. Okay.
Yeah.
They're not going off
So that's why I threw off my count, because I said almost 5 years and not 4 years, because I was thinking 12
Yeah.
month calendar.
But it would be kind of cool if it did line up like with a certain holiday or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have the word of Yahweh again coming to him and telling him to write this day down. And why is it that this day is important?
Because this is when the siege begins, and he's been saying this is coming. Like
Yeah.
for the last 4 years, he's been telling them a siege is coming, and now it started. And so
Yeah.
he's like, write this day down, because it's an important day.
Yeah, the whole thing has been, the people have been saying it's not going to happen. There's a proverb throughout the land saying this and this,
Yeah.
like this is going to happen. I'm going to flip that proverb on its head.
Yeah.
And he is kind of going to flip like a sort of proverb/parable on its head as well here. Because speaking of, we get into verses 4 and 5. Is there anything that we've read already this reminds y'all of? Just all the imagery and the whole stuff with the pot and the pieces of meat and stuff.
Was it something in Jeremiah?
No, it's in this.
No, I'm kind of blanking. I feel like it is bringing something to mind, but there's been so many parables in
Yeah.
Ezekiel that I'm kind of like
I can't pin it.
Don't worry, I got you guys.
part of me is like going back to the bread he made, but that's not the correct imagery though. Like,
Yeah.
because there's been something with a pot before, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, at least whenever I read it, it seems like it's kind of calling back to this. So in chapter 11, this was just one of those chapters where this is like during the whole vision where he's in Jerusalem and he like is showing Ezekiel what the elders are doing, and they're all doing various evil things. This is the part where so he talks to him and he brings him to the east gates, and that's where there's like the 25 men with Jazaniah and Pelatiah, and he says, "Son of man, these are the men who devise wickedness and give evil counsel in this city, who say, the time is not near to build houses. This city is the pot, and we are the flesh. Therefore prophesy against them, son of man, prophesy." Then the Spirit of Yahweh fell upon me, and he said to me, "Say, thus says Yahweh, so you say, house of Israel, for I know what comes up in your spirit. You have multiplied your slain in the city, and you have filled its streets with them. Therefore thus says Yahweh, your slain whom you have laid in the midst of the city are the flesh, and this city is the pot, but I will bring you out of it. You have feared a sword, so a sword I will bring upon you, And I will bring you out of the midst of the city, and give you into the hands of strangers, and execute judgments against you. You will fall by the sword. Skip ahead of verse. This city will not be a pot for you, but nor will you be the flesh in the midst of it, but I will judge you to the border of Israel. So it seems like it's calling back to that. I will say this chapter to me is a bit confusing, because whenever you look up the way people interpret different parts of it, it kind of seems like the way they take, like, taking stuff out of the pot kind of almost contradicts the way I would read it.
Like chapter 11?
Yeah, like, because it seems like in chapter 11, the idea is you want to be in the pots. But God says, no, you're not going to be in the pot. I'm taking you out. Like, you're not escaping. To where it seems like the pot represents, like, safety. And this could just be something where the metaphor changes, because there has been, like, 13 chapters in between. But in chapter 11, them being taken out of the pot seemed to do with God, like, plucking them out of Jerusalem, and they were going to be, like, taken to Babylon.
Reference to the exile.
That, or just them being taken out and, like, being killed.
Well, maybe here it could be referring to, we talked about, like, the choicest pieces of meat, right? Maybe God's referencing, all the rulers, the kings, the elders, all the people that would lead the nation, and they're kind of going in the cooking pot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as we're gonna read, it kind of seems like you don't want to be in the pot either.
Yeah.
So in chapter 11, it seems like it starts off like their whole thing is they're saying Jerusalem's not going to fall. Yeah. Right? It's saying like they're saying it's the pot, we're the flesh stays in the pot. And God says, no. The people you've killed, they're the flesh. So he like repurposes the imagery. Yeah. And he says, no, if you think that you're secure in the pot, well, I'm going to take you out of the pot because I'm sending you into exile. And then he's also saying I'm going to kill them and stuff like that. So yeah. That does seem like, so people don't interpret it that way?
Kind of. It's kind of weird. There's a couple things that, like, as we're gonna read, most of what I see online, they don't really like talk about it being like a like where people want to like be in the pot, to where it's almost like
in regards to chapter 11 or 24.
24.
Okay, because I could see it to where this is like it could just be a different like story. Because in chapter 11, it seems like there's
very clearly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I say it is very possible that it's just a different usage of the same imagery.
Yeah, because with chapter 24 so far, I mean, I haven't read ahead or anything like that. It's been a while since I've been in the chapter, so you would probably know better than me. But just verses 1 through 5 to me makes it sound like, in this case, being in the pot is not a good thing. Yeah. Just because it's like speak a parable to the rebellious house, and you shall say to them, and then it's like he kind of characterizes Jerusalem and the people as being like the flesh, but like. The imagery is like, all right, you're going to get a pot. I want you to make the fire as hot as possible, and you're going to boil everything, including the bones. Yeah. To where it's like, the idea of just is being just like, almost like overcooked, which doesn't seem like necessarily the best, like, scenario for you to be in. Yeah. But again, I haven't read the rest of the chapter, but.
Yeah, and to be fair, it might be this, like, based on kind of where I'm thinking this is heading, it might actually be just kind of neither as good. Yeah. Which will make probably more sense as we talk through it. But yeah. So again, so verses 4 and 5: put on the pot, put on it, and pour water in it. Put in the pieces. So I don't know. Maybe Ezekiel's actually doing this. This might be another one of those things that he's doing in front of the people, kind of like how he was drawing the stuff in the ground and he was doing the dioramas and stuff. So he puts a pot, puts water in it, he puts in the pieces, he puts in like really good cuts of meat, pile the wood under the pot. So it's like not just putting some wood, it's piling the wood. It's like everything's to the extreme. It's the best meat, the most amount of wood, make it seethe vigorously so it's like the most amount of heat, and boil its bones in it. So it's like not just cooking the meat, but like you said, the bones as well. Is there anything else that y'all want to discuss with this before we move on? Seems like it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. But I did want to discuss it before we hopped into the explanation. Yeah. Okay. I will now read through 14, because then it's kind of a different section. Yeah. Therefore, thus says Lord Yahweh, woe to the city of blood, to the pot in which there is rust, and whose rust has not gone out of it, Take out of it piece after piece, without making a choice. For her blood is in her midst. She placed it on the bare rock. She did not pour it on the ground to cover it with dust, that it may cause wrath to come up to take vengeance. I have put her blood on the bare rock, that it may not be covered. Therefore, thus says Lord Yahweh, woe to the city of blood. I also will make the pile great, heap on the wood, kindle the fire, completely cook the flesh, and mix in the spices, and let the bones be burned. Then stand it empty on its coals, so that it may be hot, and its bronze may glow, and its uncleanness may be melted in it, its rust brought to a complete end. She has wearied me with toil, yet her great rust has not gone out from her. Let her rust be in the fire. In your uncleanness is lewdness, because I would have cleansed you, yet you are not clean. You will not be cleansed from your uncleanness again, until I have caused my wrath against you to be at rest. I, Yahweh, have spoken. It is coming, and I will act. I will not regret, and I will not pity, and I will not relent. According to your ways and according to your deeds, I will judge you, declares Lord Yahweh. All right. So, how does this section start off?
So, woe to the bloodshed, the pot now must be encrusted, whose deposit will not go away. Then take out the meat piece by piece in whatever order it comes.
Mm-hmm.
So now more like it's looking to me, it's like, okay, we fill the pot, and then just kind of breaking down the first section.
Well, the question becomes real quick: what is the pot? Because he specifies what the pot is in that verse.
Mm-hmm. You said like what the pot represents?
Yeah, what does it represent? Because he specifies it in the verse.
Jerusalem?
Yeah, the city blood. So like the people who are responsible for all the bloodshed. So Jerusalem. And so he clarifies that Jerusalem is the pot. Yet one thing that he didn't mention in the parable, but he adds here, is that it's filled with rust.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is that the inside's all rusty, and so part of this whole boiling process is meant to also clean the pot. So like, because he says like by the end, I guess that the rust is like cleansed away from it, right?
Yeah. The word rust there, I guess it means like scum or like deposit.
Yeah, it's like I imagine it's like whenever you have like a cast iron skillet and like just stuff starts building up on it. You have to do like a deep clean in order to like get it off.
Season it and take care of it properly. Yeah. So, and then the other thing I was going to look at is he says to take out the meat piece by piece in whatever order it comes. So here I feel like he's talking about the people, or at least the nobles and the leaders, taking them out of the city and bringing them into exile. Because again, when we read about the exile, they're the first removed, right? Because if Babylon comes, they don't remove the leaders, they're the most likely to reorganize and rebel. So you remove the leaders, and you're left with all the poor people who are less likely to rebel and cause havoc.
Yeah, though in this case, this is talking about Jerusalem under siege, where it's going to be like completely destroyed. So this isn't talking about like where they just take out like the nobles.
Yeah, because there's 3 waves of exile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Three deportations. The first 2 have already occurred,
mm-hmm.
right? So this is the 3rd one, and basically there's a long siege that culminates in the destruction of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And so it's going to last like 2 years.
To me, this verse is a bit weird. It's probably just the phrase is weird to translate. Where it says without making a choice, I think the Hebrew literally says like no law has fallen upon it.
Mm-hmm.
To where so it's like take it out. It's like piece by piece, like send them out, or like they will go out. No lot has fallen upon it, I think is what it is. So I wasn't entirely sure. At face value, it seems like it's just talking about there being like no discrimination, to where it's like taking pieces out without making a choice. To where it's, if you compare this to the way the leaders are thinking, where like they're saying that, you know, we're the choice cuts of meat, we're going to be in the pot. God's saying that essentially the judgment's not going to care about your status. So pieces are taken out without like discrimination for like status.
Yeah.
A lot of things were saying that, like, I guess you could just infer it from the text, but a lot of them were saying that it had to do with like specifically the unclean pot making the meat unclean. That's why it was being taken out.
Okay. I mean, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
well, especially because like in the parable, the idea is that you put all the choice meat in the pot.
Yeah.
which means that this is not meat that you want to be contaminated.
Yeah.
Yet now he's saying, well, the pot's messed up, and so you got to take it out. And so it's like if you're running with the imagery, it's like God chose Jerusalem to be the place where His name dwelt, and they were supposed to produce these amazing things, yet they become contaminated, and so as a result, they have to be removed.
Yeah, which to me that would also, that would just make sense either way.
Like the faithful remnant must be removed.
Well, no, just all of them, right?
If anything, it's less about a faithful remnant and more just in that interpretation, it'd be more like the things that are being taken out are ruined because the thing is the pot is contaminated or unclean, and so whatever goes into it is being also contaminated. So you gotta take it out and then you gotta cleanse the pot, make it clean. So that's most likely I would assume it's referring to. But it's kind of a strange verse.
I had a tough time.
Yeah, just because it says take it out piece after piece, but then later down it says to boil the flesh again, and so it seems like there's still meat in the pot. But it also could be something to where one way I could read this as well is something that we've been reading throughout Ezekiel, but also other prophets too, is the way that the destruction of Jerusalem is, and even back in Deuteronomy, the whole idea was that some people were going to die in the city, some people were going to die outside. And so some people would, die of famine in the city, some people would be killed in the city by the enemy forces, some people would flee but be taken captive, some people would, flee but be chased down and killed, different things. And so this even could just be something where there's still flesh in the pot, but maybe in the analogy or the metaphor, some people are being indiscriminately being taken away.
Yeah, I think that's what's implied by the whole without making a choice thing, because if you were just taking all of it out of the city, then all of the meat would be coming out. But it's the idea is he's not distinguishing between, I'm leaving you, and you here because of what you did. It's no, he's just saying, just take some out, leave some in.
Yeah, and again, this is not we went through a few weeks ago, there was the chapter where we talked about how people are dealt with on an individual basis, the soul that sins, will be dealt with accordingly. But yet the consequences of the sins of the nation, those are not going to have discrimination. And so there will be innocent people or righteous people that will be dying in the city, but it won't be necessarily judgment for their sins. And so I would say those are probably two different things. And so here it's some people are being taken out, taken to Babylon, and these people don't have a choice. And it's also not, and it's not because of their status or anything.
Yeah. And then God says that He's the one who's gonna stack up the fire and make it great, and He's gonna be the one to make sure that this pot burns and gets all that stuff cleaned off, because they haven't been doing a good job cleaning off the pot. So He's guess I'll do it myself.
Yeah. Another thing, I mentioned this earlier before we started, but another thing that I noticed here as well is just this. There's a lot of mention of blood again, and in verse 7 and also in verse 8, what's going on with verses 7 and 8? Because to me, the verses are strange. I'm probably not wording the question properly, but what is he talking about?
For the blood she shed in her mess, she poured it out on the bare rock. She did not pour it out on the ground where the dust was covered up. So it sounds like to me it's trying to paint the imagery of Jerusalem's bloodshed it's very visible.
Well, yeah, I think the imagery is just a lack of remorse. That's how I would think, because the idea is in general, if you were to, try to step into an ancient mindset, right? If they're guilty of murder, right? If that's the image you're going with, bloodshed. If you murder somebody, is it better to murder somebody on top of tile or on top of open dirt? Well, it's better to murder them on open dirt, because then you can mix up the dirt and cover up the blood. the tile, the blood's just gonna sit there.
Yeah.
Right? And so the idea is like it says, her blood is in her midst. She placed it on the bare rock. She did not pour it on the ground to cover it with dust. So it's like she's not even trying to cover her bloodshed anymore. The idea is that she's just like she's just guilty of and I don't know if it's necessarily supposed to be literal murder, but the idea is like their sin, they're not even trying to cover it anymore. They're just openly embracing it and not even trying to conceal it, which is like, I mean, obviously it's not good to conceal sin either, but like, if you're not even trying to conceal sin, that would suggest that your conscience doesn't even care.
Yeah.
Right? And so as a result, God says that it may cause wrath to come upon it to take vengeance. I have put her blood on the bare rock. So he's like, okay, if you don't care about the blood you're shedding, well, then I'm not going to care when I shed your blood, and I'm going to do it on the bare rock. And the imagery is conveyed even better whenever you consider that Jerusalem is like this fortified city of like rock and stone, to where even to this day, like I don't know, like Jerusalem stone and rock is like people will literally like bring stones from Jerusalem to like build stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like one was like, he's like, okay, well I'm going to make your city filled with blood.
Yeah, there was a verse, I was kind of curious if this had anything to do with it too, but there's a verse in Leviticus that mentions like the covering of blood with dust. So it's in Leviticus 17, and it's like all the statutes about eating blood. So it isn't the same thing, but it talks about like, there's a lot of discourse in Leviticus about like different things with slaughtering animals like outside the camp and like at the altar and like different things with, like the offerings and stuff. But it does say, just a quick read, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that makes atonement by the life. Therefore I said to the sons of Israel, no person among you may eat blood, and no sojourner who sojourns among you may eat blood. So any man from the sons of Israel, or from the sojourners who sojourn among them, who in hunting catches a beast or a bird which may be eaten, shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth. And so it seems like there is a kind of a connection here with like, again, like the blood guiltiness and stuff, to where
blood guilt.
Yeah, well, so it says like basically they're supposed to cover the blood up, otherwise they become like guilty of that blood. And so it seems like here God is also calling them like they're also just being guilty of that blood, like of the bloodshed, to where if he says like if he does not wash or bathe his body, then he shall bear his guilt. And so again, Jerusalem has become an unclean city, and they're bearing the blood guiltiness of the blood, like of the people they're slaying. And so again, God's going to do the same thing to them. He's going to judge them, and so there will be bloodshed. He will shed blood for like blood for blood, and it will be like for everyone to see.
Yeah. Yeah. The one verse I don't like how verse 13 is translated.
Yes, I agree.
Like and so like in the LSB it says, "In your uncleanness is lewdness, because I would have cleansed you." I don't like the insertion of the word "would" there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's in italics in ours, so like it's inserted. Technically, it says, "In your uncleanness is lewdness, because I have cleansed you, yet you are not clean." Is that the part that you were saying you didn't like?
I wasn't fully sure what was going on because I don't know Hebrew grammar with like the verbs and stuff well, but I did see the would in there because to me the would changes a lot.
It does, yeah.
And so
like,
the fact that it's inserted made me kind of wonder,
well,
and I had looked at it online. And it was like I have cleansed you, and I was like, why is the would there?
Yeah, that's what I was fact checking it whenever you're reading it, but I can guarantee you the reason why this word is inserted. Like this is where it annoys me from a translation perspective.
Yeah.
It says like they inserted the word "would" because God says, "Because I would have cleansed you, yet you are not clean." They inserted "would" there because they don't want it to seem like God failed.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're like, oh wait, God is all powerful, He cannot fail, and therefore it's not possible for Him to say, "I have cleansed you, yet you are not clean." So they inserted the word "would" there to make it more theologically comfortable. And I don't like that. Because what you're doing is you're changing what God said to make it feel more comfortable for the reader, rather than letting us sit in like the difficulty of what He actually said.
Yeah.
Because to me, I think that it's supposed to be shocking. Because what he says is, I have cleansed you, yet you are not clean. That's a stronger statement, right? He's not saying, well, I wanted to cleanse you and I would have done it. He's like, no, I've done it. You're just that dirty, right? So we're like, basically, like, this is God himself saying, even I cannot cleanse this. Like, that's how, but again, people don't like that because it's like, is God literally saying he cannot do it? No. He's emphasizing their sin.
Yeah.
But I don't like that they, like, just little words like that. I hate when they insert it because it changes the meaning of it, right? To where it actually lessens it. Like, it lessens the strength of what he's saying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. If anything, it kind of takes away from the extent of, like, Israel, either the extent of their sin or the extent of, like, their stubbornness in continuing to sin.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's kind of like if I took Yuppie outside and I went and gave him a bath and I brought him in here and he was still dirty. I'd be like, I just cleaned you.
Yeah.
Right? Like the idea is like, how is this possible? And that's like what God's saying, where he's supposed to be like surprised. He's like, in your uncleanness is lewdness. I cleansed you, yet you're not clean. Just little things like that annoy me because there's stuff like that throughout the Bible that, like, they're very subtle, but they do shape your theology a little bit.
Yeah.
To where it just like shapes it to where it's like, it just, you miss what God is saying.
Yeah.
Because then he says, you will not be cleansed from your uncleanness again. Which doesn't even make sense with the word would. Because the fact that he says, you will not be cleansed from your uncleanness again, implies that they have been cleansed before.
Yeah.
Right? I have cleansed you, you are not clean, you're not going to be cleaned again. So it's like, you already had one shower, you went and got dirty again, what can I do about it? So.
Yeah. It's like he has to go further. So they won't be cleansed until his wrath is completely exhausted.
Yeah. And verse 14 goes pretty hard. I, Yahweh, have spoken. It is coming, and I will act. I will not regret. I will not pity. I will not relent. It's like,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Not words you want to hear.
Yeah. No, for real. Going back to like verse like 9 and so on. Again, just like keeping in mind that this is God doing all this, and so it's not just that the Babylonians are coming in, or that this pot is being heated. It says that he will also make the pile great.
Well, I also like the imagery in, I want to say verse 11. So talking about impurities, right? We referenced that earlier with the slog, right?
The dross.
The dross, yes.
Yeah.
So that it's just interesting that it's brought up again.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say the word there for melted is the same as in chapter 20. So whenever it says in chapter 20 the dross will be melted away, the word melted is the exact same word.
That's in the Hebrew, right?
Yeah, the word's the same. And I think even in English it's the same. It's just
because I'm reading NIV and that's like it's dross over there but melted in here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Sorry. Lost my train of thought. So another thing I noticed here was, so he says like he's going to keep on heaping the wood. It says completely cook the flesh, mix in the spices, and let the bones be burned. And again, the same thing here. There's the word for burned here for the bones is the same as in chapter 15 with the wood being charred. To where whenever in chapter 15 it mentioned the wood being charred, the idea was it became useless. If anything, it was only fuel for the fire. But in this case, the bones inside the pot are becoming charred to where they're completely useless now. And so, like, this is also very intense heat for sure. The word there for spices is kind of strange. It seems like it's also the same word for like ointments, but I'm not really sure what to do with that word there.
I heard that right. You said spice, right? Spice?
Yeah.
Spice. What verse is that? I'm not seeing it.
Oh, it's just verse 10. It's not that important.
Oh, mixing in all the spice. Okay, no, I was reading too far ahead. So heat the wood in the fire, cook all the meat well, mixing the spices. I think it's just emphasizing that, like, cook it well, put effort into it.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I thought was interesting, and it may not really be much, but it does mention that this cooking pot is bronze. And to me, like, it could be because of us going through Exodus as well, but and even throughout Ezekiel, we have had association with like bronze and like altars and stuff. But in Exodus, we were recently going through with the temple instructions, and there's a bronze altar in front of the tabernacle, and on that there was also like a place to like grill, like cook meat, like for offerings and stuff. And so I'm kind of curious if there is any kind of an association here to where there is like a double meaning to where this whole like pot with the meat being cooked also could serve as like some kind of an offering or sacrifice too.
Yeah, well, I think we saw that same imagery back in, I think it was chapter 11, where we talked about how Jerusalem is supposed to be kind of almost like reduced to a big altar of sacrifice, where God says like he like the language describes that. So I could see it. Did I realize it's just being the same imagery?
You know, the NIV does take that away because it refers to, is in verse 11. It goes, then the empty pot. Then set the empty pot on the coals till it becomes hot, and it's copper glow. So it's referring to copper pot in NIV. So you lose some of that meaning there.
Oh, okay, I see.
So I mean, I go on my ESV on each night, but
yeah, that's
yeah.
fair.
So this is now I'm starting to like my ESV more when I don't have it on me, because I lose some of the meaning when I read this.
Yeah.
I'm just starting to, just little things, but
No, you're fine. Yeah. Anything else in this section you want to mention?
I don't think so.
I think I'm good. Next one looks pretty brutal.
Yeah, we can go move on. Read the rest of the chapter. And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, behold, I am about to take from you the desire of your eyes with a blow. But you shall not mourn, and you shall not weep, and your tears shall not come. Groan silently. Make no mourning for the dead. Bind on your headdress, and put on your shoes on your feet, and do not cover your mustache, and do not eat the bread of men. So I spoke to the people in the morning, and in the evening my wife died. And in the morning I did as I was commanded. The people said to me, Will you not tell us what these things you are doing mean for us? Then I said to them, The word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Say to the house of Israel, Thus says Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am about to profane my sanctuary, the pride of your strength, the desire of your eyes, and the delight of your soul. And your sons and your daughters whom you have left behind will fall by the sword. And you will do as I have done. You will not cover your mustache, and you will not eat the bread of men. And your headdresses will be on your heads, and your shoes on your feet. You will not mourn, and you will not weep, but you will rot away in your iniquities, and you will groan to one another. Thus Ezekiel will be a wondrous sign to you. According to all that he has done, you will do. When it comes, then you will know that I am Lord Yahweh. Now as for you, son of man, will it not be on the day when I take from them their strong defense, the joy of their beauty, the desire of their eyes, and what lifts up their soul, their sons and their daughters, that on that day he who escapes will come to you with a report for your ears. On that day your mouth will be open to him who escaped, and you will speak and be mute no longer. Thus you will be a wondrous sign to them, and they will know that I am Yahweh.
Alright, so pretty brutal. So what's happening here is kind of at a high level is essentially God kills Ezekiel's wife very quickly, and he tells him, don't mourn, don't weep, don't show the people your emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gives an example as to what the people are going to go through. Because what's going to happen is the Babylonians are going to come, they're not going to have time to mourn, they're not going to have time to weep, they're just going to have to pick up and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta acknowledge something real quick in case anybody was watching this online. So this section is a really sad section, and I thought I might alleviate some of the tension by zooming in on Yuppie while you were reading. And while the camera was zoomed in on Yuppie, he decided to do what dogs do and just start like licking at the worst possible place. And so I apologize if anybody's watching this online. I'm sorry that you got a zoomed in video of my dog doing that. I had good intentions. It just backfired.
Added bonus.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is a sad section. I think we need to watch Yuppie. And it was like literally as you were like, and the wife died, and Yuppie just, yeah. So, anyways, I just had to address that because, yeah. On another note, this to me is like one of the saddest, like, stories in the entire Bible. Like, and it's said so bluntly that like it almost like rings with like the idea of like Ezekiel still has a tough time talking about it. Like,
yeah.
Like even the way it describes it in verse 16. Son of man, behold, I'm about to take from you the desire of your eyes with a blow. Right? Like, it's just like, it doesn't say I'm about to take your wife from you. It says I'm about to take the desire of your eyes. And it leaves it up to us to figure out what's it talking about here. And then it literally just says, verse 18, so I spoke to the people in the morning, and in the evening my wife died. And in the morning I did as the Lord commanded. And it's like, like, that's horrible. And the idea is that like his wife dies suddenly, and he's not allowed to mourn over it. And like this just adds a whole other level of complexity. Like we talked a lot about like how unfortunate it is to be a prophet, but like shoot, doesn't seem like it's much better to be a prophet's wife. But like think about this from Ezekiel's wife's perspective. She was a real woman, and she like her life is used as like an image to communicate a message to the people of like Jerusalem. Like that almost sounds kind of callous. But I think it conveys the seriousness of what's going on here, and hopefully she was a devout, fearful woman who was like, okay, Lord, do with me what you will. But it does sound like it's a very extreme thing. Like whenever you consider this was a real woman who had a real life. I mean, she was like the desire of his eyes, and she just dies. Yeah. And it's just to communicate a message. Like this is where you're like, oh, okay, God is serious, right? He just let an innocent woman die just to communicate the seriousness of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And like poor Ezekiel, like again, he's only a few years into his ministry. It's like this is rough.
He's
like
going through it.
Yeah, being a priest is not what I expected. Like I don't know, this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, just that, and just the fact it's not just that his wife gets taken from him, it's that he's not even allowed to mourn at all.
Yeah. He has to just move on as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to ask of somebody, like, because like the difference is that whenever Jerusalem falls, they're guilty, right? They deserve it, and the idea is, yeah, they're not gonna have time to mourn, and they're not like they're just gonna have to pack up their stuff and go off to Babylon, but like they at least deserve what was coming. Ezekiel is he's just the prophet.
Yeah.
And his wife, she didn't do anything. It's literally just, this is what ministry looks like. And it's like I don't know, like that's just like, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Groan silently, make no mourning for the dead. You shall not weep, your tears shall not come. It's like, that's just be hard. Like,
yeah.
The idea is that he literally just has to like force himself to just move on and just keep ministering as normal. To where he talks to the people in the morning, his wife dies that night, he wakes up in the morning and just keeps talking. And that's why even they're like in verse 19, they're like, will you not tell us what these things are that you're doing? What do they mean for us? Like, they can tell that he's putting on a show, right? Like, because the thing is, like, I imagine, like, whenever he's up there talking to them, it's not easy for him, right? Like, he's having to hold back the tears, but they're on the verge of his eyes. Like, they can tell he wants to cry, but he's not letting himself. And so they realize, oh, this is a message for us. What does this mean?
It reminds me of a professor I had a few years ago, and I didn't have him the semester it happened, but my classmates who took him the semester after me, his son died, and he sent a team's message. He's like, I'm not going to be available for office hours on Friday. I got to go to visit my son in Austin. He's in the hospital, but things look good. And he comes back and does a lecture on that following Tuesday, and his son passed like Monday night, so he's literally fresh off it, and he gives his lecture as per normal. You could tell something's off, and like somebody eventually asks him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my son died," and he just walks out of the room, just stone cold, no emotion. But anyway,
Yeah, I imagine Ezekiel was probably showing some emotion, but like the thing is, they can tell that he's actively having to fight it back, like to where like it does, like I don't know, just like the language of the desire of your eyes. You don't see language of like that in the Bible very often to describe like spouses, right? That's like it's a very like modern, like romantic view of it. I don't know. I liked where it's like he really cared about his wife. Like this is not just like he doesn't just say, "Hey, by the way, tomorrow your wife's gonna die." He's like, no, the desire of your eyes, like your pride and joy, the apple of your eye. I think is this not where we get the term apple of your eye from?
I'm not sure actually.
I'll look it up.
I figured that may have been like Song of Solomon or something.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. But I don't know. Just like the idea is like just that one phrase right there because it's so uncommon, right? Like nowadays, if you were to read a book and it said, "Hey, you're gonna lose the love of your life," we wouldn't think much of it. But the Bible doesn't spend that much time talking about like the interpersonal, intimate dynamics between husbands and wives, right? I mean, really, it doesn't talk about that much about like how a lot of people feel towards one another, right? It's very rare that you actually get to see in the Bible how two people feel about one another, right? I mean, I can think of like David and Jonathan, and then like the characters in the Song of Solomon, right? Like there's not much whenever you see like how they feel, but like right here, just that one phrase, you're like, well, he cares about her. Like it's not like this just like some like, oh yeah, my wife who I like haven't talked to in 5 years. It's like no, they're like best friends, and she dies, and then and he just has to keep on going. Like that's
brutal.
heartbreaking.
Yeah. Which it also has something to say about, the other side of this, which is that, what it has to say about, Israel and the temple, and how they would relate to where, when you get to verse 21, God says, "I am going to profane my sanctuary, the pride of your strength, the desire of your eyes, and the delight of your soul." So what's going on there? Is there anything that sticks out to y'all in that verse? Because there kind of is to me in verse 21.
I'm about to desecrate my sanctuary, the stronghold in which you take pride, the light in your eyes. The object of your affection. So he's talking about desecrating his own temple, and then the object of the people's eyes would be their sons and daughters. They will be left behind. They will fall by the sword. And then he moves forward in saying that they won't have time to mourn for him. They'll just have to pick up and go.
Yeah.
They won't have time to mourn for the temple, nor for their sons or daughters.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that God didn't just say he was destroying his temple, but he was actually like profaning it.
Yeah.
Does that?
That does stand out to me too.
Well, and is the word for profane there the same as like to make common?
I don't actually think.
I'll look it up in a second.
Okay.
Sorry, my mind was blown because apparently the phrase "apple of my eye" comes from Deuteronomy 32.
Nice.
My mind is blown. I'm like, I should have known this. He found him in a desert land, in the howling waste of a wilderness. He encircled him. He cared for him. He guarded him as the pupil of his eye, but it's like the apple of his eye. Crazy. I should have known that. Anyways, sorry. That just was a tangent.
Another
Deuteronomy
32 reference. Can't escape it.
I'm assuming the word for profane here, yeah, it's just halal. So it's
That's the most common word for profane, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Halal?
Halal.
Not the same thing.
Halal? Okay.
Yeah, not like halal or anything.
Okay. I heard halal and I'm like.
No. It's just it's halal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I looked it up. I didn't really see much previous I didn't really see any other verses where it was like specifically worded to where God said he was going to profane his temple. He said plenty of times that he was going to let it get destroyed. And I guess he's probably said that other nations like the Babylon would come in and profane it. But here it's actually God taking credit for profaning it, which I just thought was interesting. Which again, I would say it's probably that when here God says He's going to profane it, it's referring to the nations going in and doing that. But you see, like God kind of taking credit for Babylon going in and doing it.
Yeah, so the word, like, this is just kind of going back to like the same thing I was talking about last week in regards to like there's clean, unclean, then there's holy, and there's common. And to profane something, I just want to clarify like what it means from a Hebrew perspective, because whenever we think profane, it's almost like maybe a bit stronger.
Yeah.
Because to profane something is to take something holy and make it common, right? And so profaning it is like, it is to desecrate it, but it's to basically make it to where it is no longer set apart anymore, if that makes sense.
I see.
Because that's why I was talking about it last week, because like the word chol, that is translated, depending on how they want to, as either common or profane. But the idea is that it's holy versus common, right? So there's the normal things, and then there's the things set apart to God. Israel is supposed to be entirely set apart to God. But he's saying, I'm going to profane it in the sense of, I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to make it normal again. Like it's which is still not a good thing, but like, it's a bit different than how we sometimes think of the term, because like we think of it almost like,
Vandalize.
well, like vandalizing or something like that, because I think that's where we get the language from, but it's just like more like a technical thing where we have to kind of just like clarify what it, like, from a Hebrew perspective, that's a specific like category of things, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like God like saying that He's gonna go like, like do graffiti on the walls and like I mean He is gonna destroy it, but the idea is that it's no longer gonna be set apart to Him, and the only reason it is still standing at this point is because it has been set apart to Him.
Yeah.
But if He removes that, well, now it's just a pile of stones, and so He can let it be demolished.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Verse 24, thus Ezekiel will be a wondrous sign to you. According to all he has done, you will do. When it comes, you will know that I am Lord Yahweh. Like, this is one of those places where poor Ezekiel's like, I wish I wasn't a sign. Like,
yeah.
Like to where the prophet is the sign to them. Like, he is a living prophecy. Like, we talked about him being a watchman, and he has done everything to accomplish that goal, to where he has shared parables, he has done dioramas, he has acted things out, but now he is literally a living prophecy. And they have, like, before them, in the last 24 hours, they have seen him embody what's going to be happening to the people of Judah. It's like, ooh, it's rough.
Yeah.
And, like it's rough for him, but also for the people of Judah, like, once they get the message, it's like, ooh, like imagine like this. Like, it's easy for us to sit over here, like, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, like, thousands of years later, and we can be like, wow, poor Ezekiel, isn't that crazy? But, like, imagine that he was sharing that message with us, and was communicating to us that we would be in his shoes shortly. That would change it a bit. Because now all of a sudden, you're not thinking, oh, poor Ezekiel, you're thinking, well, poor me. It's like, oh no, like that's going to be all of us soon.
Yeah.
And so it is bad for him, but the idea is that it's going to be for all the people are going to be going through this.
Yeah, that's true. And just like that, he says that they're not going to be like mourning either as well.
Yeah.
I guess, how does this chapter end? The last 3 or so verses. It's kind of a strange little section too.
Yeah, I've seen people interpret this different ways. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but like, this is the place where
Future.
let me just reread it to make sure it's the thing I'm thinking of. So, is the idea that he's going to be mute for a while?
I don't know, but I will say this. In chapter 33, it says, now it happened in the 12th year that those who escaped from Jerusalem came to me, saying, the city has been struck down. Now the hand of Yahweh had been upon me in the evening, before those who escaped came. And he opened my mouth at the time they came to me in the morning, So my mouth was open and I was no longer mute.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, because I've heard people, that's what I was suggesting, like, people have interpreted that there's, like, a prolonged period where he is just, like, in addition to all the other stuff he's gone through, he's also mute.
Yeah.
And it's literally, like, to where, in addition to the sign of his wife, he also becomes a wondrous sign going forward to where he is mute until the moment that these people come and report that the siege has actually been fulfilled. To where, like, I guess for the entire time period that the siege is going on in Jerusalem, he's mute. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
To where it's like, he tells everybody, hey, write this date down, the siege begins. And then his wife dies. And then he talks to them, and he says, I'm going to be mute for a bit. And then he's mute for 2 years until the moment whenever they receive news that Jerusalem has fallen. And then all of a sudden he can speak again. And that's interesting to me because that, like, seems like there's a... I've never heard people talk about it, but that seems like that'd be a deliberate callback when you get to the book of Luke. And you have John the Baptist's father, who is struck mute from the moment that you have the announcement of John the Baptist's birth until his actual birth. That's interesting because that would suggest that, like, the pregnancy of, like, John the Baptist's mother is almost like representative of the siege on Jerusalem. And then you have John the Baptist, who is the voice in the wilderness who is born to prepare the people for the Messiah. And, like, in Ezekiel, you've got, like, the siege of Jerusalem is preparing them for this new covenant.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. I never heard people talk about that, but it was, like, if that is what's going on here, where there's this mute, like, time period, it seems weird that it happens to be with the announcement and then the actual, like, execution of what was announced.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens with Zechariah in the Gospel of Luke.
Okay.
And so it seems like there's, like, a intentional echo of some sort there.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and but yeah, there is that verse, like that section later on where, like, it does revisit this to where he was for some time mute. It seems like.
Well, and I think everything in between, those are all the prophecies against the nations, right?
Yeah, I think all of it is really just foreign nation stuff.
Yeah, and it's not him saying anything. It's just, it says, Yahweh came to me and said.
Yeah.
And so, he might be able to, like, write stuff down, but...
Yeah. So there's that section before about him being Israel's watchman, but that's probably, like God telling him what to say, and then the time comes for him to say it. Yeah, like you said. Yeah. Anything else? It is relatively straightforward, but there probably is something definitely there as far as having, like, this period of silence in between. It's kind of like just there's like that time between God saying something is going to happen, or not just that it will happen, but that it starts happening and it's, like, concluded to where there isn't really much else for Ezekiel to say at this point, because the thing that he's been warning about kind of is already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we can go ahead and probably move on. Chapter 25. It's a pretty short chapter, but yeah, it's what, 4 nations? Yeah, 4 nations. So we can probably just read. I'll probably read the first 2 nations first, and then the other half I'll do, because there's 4 nations addressed here, and it seems like the first 2 have more in common, and the second 2 have more in common. So we can just discuss them separately.
So this is 25 and 20.
Just 25, yeah.
Just 25.
And the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face towards the sons of Ammon, and prophesy against them, and say to the sons of Ammon, Hear the word of Lord Yahweh. Thus says Lord Yahweh, because you said, Aha, against my sanctuary when it was profaned, and against the land of Israel when it was made desolate, and against the house of Judah when they went into exile. Therefore, behold, I am going to give you to the sons of the east for a possession, and they will set their encampments among you, and make their dwellings among you. They will eat your fruit and drink your milk. I will make Rabbah a pasture for camels, and the sons of Ammon a resting place for flocks. Thus you will know that I am Yahweh. For thus says Lord Yahweh, because you have clapped your hands and stamped your feet, and were glad with all the scorn of your soul against the land of Israel, therefore, behold, I have stretched out my hand against you, and I will give you for plunder to the nations. And I will cut you off from the peoples, and make you perish from the lands. I will destroy you. Thus you will know that I am Yahweh. Thus says Lord Yahweh, because Moab and Seir say, behold, the house of Judah is like all the nations. Therefore, behold, I am going to open the flank of Moab by its cities which are on its frontiers, the glory of the land, Beth Jeshimoth, Baal Meon, and Kiriathaim, and I will give it for a possession along with the sons of Ammon to the sons of the east, so that the sons of Ammon will not be remembered among the nations. Thus I will execute judgments on Moab, and they will know that I am Yahweh.
So both of them seem to be, in a way, mocking the Israelite people. The Ammonites, they seem to celebrate when the Israelites go into exile. And the Moabs, it doesn't directly hint that they celebrate, but it seems to imply that Moab's like, oh, Israel, they're just like the rest of the nations.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ammon and Moab, they're the descendants of Lot. Right? These are the ones who, if you were to look at a map of Israel, they live to the east of the Dead Sea. Right? So they're just like right on the edge there, across the Jordan River. And it seems like, yeah, they're both going to be destroyed. They're both going to be judged. Ammon is being judged because it seems like they mocked Judah during this. And what's interesting is it is a prophecy because it's saying, you did this whenever my people were destroyed, but like they're currently like in the timeline where we're currently at, they're in the process of being destroyed.
Yeah.
And so the idea that like this is stuff that God knows they're going to do, or I guess it's possible that these are messages that Ezekiel actually prophesied later on, but like when it came to putting the book together, he put them in the middle here because of the structure of the book.
Yeah.
Because there is that definite like chiastic structure going on here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Ammon, their main thing is that they mocked Judah whenever they were being destroyed. And then Moab, their whole thing is just like not esteeming Judah highly enough and realizing that they were genuinely different.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's like, to me, it reminds me of like, I don't know, like two siblings. Like, you know, a big brother can beat up his little brother, but he won't let anybody else beat up his brother. Like, God's over here, like, the whole thing that he's been calling them out on for the first 24 chapters of Ezekiel is he's telling Judah, he's like, you're not living in a holy manner, and you're not being set apart from the nations, and you're no different than everybody else. And Moab's like, yeah, you're no different than us. And God's like, hey, no.
Yeah.
Back up. Like, it's like, God can say it because the thing is, the reason why God is so frustrated with them not living holy lives is because they are holy, right? Regardless of whether they're living that way or not, he has already declared them set apart. And so that's why he is frustrated. Whereas the Moabites, they're suggesting that Judah's just no different than anybody else. And God's like, no. That's not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying they're not living set apart, but they're still set apart.
Yeah.
And how dare you suggest that they're not? Which is I think that's interesting from a modern perspective because of the modern debate, like in the church, where people debate about like whether or not the church has replaced Israel, and like people suggest that like, oh no, Israel, like there's nothing different than them. Like there's nothing that sets Israel apart from like the rest of the nations. I'm like, I don't know, like I'd be very careful saying that because a lot of times like the modern arguments from some people in the church is they'll say, well, Israel's not serving God. I'm like, yeah, have you read Ezekiel? Yeah, the whole point is that they're not living in a holy manner and they're not serving God, but that doesn't mean that he's changed his covenant to them. He still has that covenant. And
yeah.
That's where it's like I just can't ever get into the whole like idea of replacement theology, the idea that the church has replaced Israel. I think that we are a part of Israel in some unique way, but I think it's much more nuanced than that. But it's like the Old Testament just doesn't allow me to get there because it's like, well, yeah, God consistently is like, hey, Israel, why are you living like the nations? And then the nations are like, yeah, see, y'all aren't any different than us. And God's like, shut up, they're different than y'all. And it's like, wait,
Yeah.
wait, what? It's like both can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
To where they are different in the eyes of God, but his frustration is that they're not living different, right? So there's a difference to be ironed out there. And I would say that that's pretty much true for the Jewish people nowadays too, to where they are not living for God as they should be, but he still hasn't revoked his covenant. And so to me, I'm like, we need to be very careful there because it doesn't seem like he's very happy with the Moabites or Ammonites, and so I think it's kind of, this is where Paul talks about not like us Gentiles not getting boastful, because if he would reject the Jewish people, how much more would he reject us? So as Christians, we need to be very careful to not to downplay God's relationship with Israel.
Yeah. I also wonder if Ammon here is kind of making the same mistake that Judah was doing in relation to the northern kingdom, to where a few chapters ago we read about how Nebuchadnezzar was going down and he had an option of going, turning to the left to go to Ammon, and to going to Judah. And I don't remember, I think we read somewhere that Ammon had rebelled against Babylon. That or it's just records of it. And I wonder if it's possible that maybe this is in response to Nebuchadnezzar going to siege on Jerusalem, and they're like, aha, they're going after you instead.
They're like, whew, glad we missed that one. It sucks to be y'all. And God's like, don't worry, I'm sending them after y'all eventually. Because didn't God communicated that in that,
Yeah, it was that right after that. He said, basically, don't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
It's 19
or... chapter 21. It said, now as for you, son of man, make 2 ways for the sword of the king of Babylon to come. Both of them will go out from one land. Make a signpost, make it at the head of the way of the city. You shall mark a way for the sword to come to Rabbah, that's Ammon, and then to Judah, to Jerusalem. And then, don't you get the language of the clapping and the... I know that we've seen that language before, I don't remember where it was at though. But where it said the stomping of feet and the clapping of hands.
Oh.
Kind of a war chant, maybe?
Yeah, but I think I think it's
dude,
used to the imagery of mockery. But
never mind, that's different. I was gonna say in chapter or verse 12 or whatever, it's there's Ezekiel doing the slapping the thigh and crying out.
Where's that at? What chapter?
That's in the same chapter, it's just a little bit above.
But the whole idea of...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But you're talking about something different. Yeah, at the end of that chapter, it talks about now as for you, son of man, prophesy concerning Ammon, and it's a sword being drawn. And that's the whole return to its sheath. We talked about how that might be talking about a prolonged judgment or something. In verses 28 through 32.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I am kind of I'm kind of curious if this could be almost in response to that, to where in the same way that Judah kind of saw the northern kingdom get destroyed and they kind of did the same thing, to where they were okay, well, it's not going to happen to us. Woo! Thankfully they got destroyed, not us, and God was well, I want to watch that.
Yeah. God's no, they're coming, just wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're saying, with the clapping your hands and stamping your feet.
Yeah. I think that verse in chapter 21 was what I was thinking of. Because whenever I looked it up, the language there doesn't show up anywhere else.
Oh, okay.
So.
Maybe that was it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, both of them kind of end up having the same fate, to where kind of no different to Israel. God ends up allowing them to be conquered. So he says he gives them as plunder to other nations. And does he say for both of them, the sons of the east? Yeah. Yeah, I will give it for possession along with Ammon to the sons of the east. So I guess it's just the nations to the east of them, Babylon and maybe in Arabia and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also just both of the sections end with saying that they may know that I am Yahweh. So again,
well, that's how chapter 24 ended as well. Towards
that's true, yeah.
It's just the declaration they will these are the ways by which God's going to make himself known.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the Exodus.
It's true. Anything else in those two sections?
I don't think so. I think it's interesting how it's like the order he's going in here. He goes like literally just around the border of Judah.
Yeah,
where
he will eventually go like, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got like Syria and Israel have already been taken out for a while now, right? And so you've got Judah, and directly to the east of Judah is Ammon, and then to the southeast of Judah is Moab, and to the south of Judah is Edom, and then to the southwest of Judah is Philistia. So like he's literally just like moving in a circle around like the outside border of Judah.
Yeah, and then he gets to Tyre, which is
North. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I wonder if this could be why it's placed here, but it also like it makes sense. This is also like the prophecies are placed here because whether it happens right now or not, the last thing we just read about was about the siege of Jerusalem happening, to where these are all different responses to these are all different nations' responses to the eventual destruction of Jerusalem, to where in fact, that wasn't just the last thing we read. The last thing we read was specifically about how Israel was supposed to respond, to where Israel was not going to mourn, and Ezekiel was not going to mourn, but then the responses of the nations they're not just not mourning, they're not being silent, like Ezekiel has to be silent for the whole time in between, but they're actually like mocking, and they're like looking down on Jerusalem, to where
Keep going.
I mean, that's pretty much all I was going to say, but I just think that was interesting.
Well, I was going to say that I think it's interesting that all the nations are being judged, not merely because of their sin, but specifically because of how they're responding to the people of Judah.
Yeah.
Right? That's interesting. Because I think that's going to be picked up in the New Testament as well, to where you have, Saul on the road to Damascus, and Jesus knocks him down, and he says, "Who are you, Lord?" "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." To where God views it as an attack against him whenever you attack his people.
Yeah.
And again, to me, that's why as a Christian, I'm I don't know, we need to be very careful about our relationship to Israel. I'm very hesitant to ever right now in the world we see it's been really weird ever since the whole October 7th thing. The spike in anti-Semitism has been crazy. I always thought it was wild. Whenever people talk about I don't know, anti-Semitism in the past, I'm okay, come on, that's not gonna happen again. But literally just in the last few years, it's weird how it's just spiked. And I've seen it amongst the church too, and I'm just hey, be very careful. Go study your Bible before you take a stance like that. Because to me, all the language here is God's judging them based on how they treat Israel.
Yeah.
And I guess the church, people who believe in replacement theology would suggest that oh well, God's going to judge everybody how they treat us. And I'm okay, but what if you're wrong? What if it's also, that's just significant, worth considering.
Yeah. Well, so one thing we always talk about is how God holds the nations to a different standard than Israel, because obviously they don't have the law and the same unique relationship that they do with God.
Yeah.
But since we're on this topic, it kind of seems like that is kind of one of the big metrics, to where, people know that murder's bad and very more basic things, and so God does still hold accountable nations for things abusing power and bloodshed and things like that, because they don't really need Torah for that.
Yeah.
But it does seem a lot of it is also they may not have Torah, but what they do have is the nation of Torah, to where they are still part of what shapes the way that God responds to them is how they treat Israel, to where that is kind of throughout the Old Testament as well. It's not just they have a different part of that different standard is the nations are supposed Israel's supposed to respond to God, and the nations are supposed to respond to Israel.
Well, and I think that paves the way exactly for what we believe as Christians, because whenever Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," the whole point is that he is the King of Israel, right? He's the King of the Jews, and God will judge us based off how we respond to him.
Yeah.
Right? He is the king, right? And so we would say that Scripture is all pointing us towards chiefly the King of Israel, but you can't have the King of Israel if you reject his kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's as Gentiles, the whole thing is we believe in Jesus, which means that we need to support the chosen people as well. You know what I mean? Like that's just again, probably like a side thing that doesn't, like we don't need to go, I've probably gone on too long about already, but it's something that I don't think people spell out enough. I think that like in our churches, we have people who like, they have two extremes. Like some people just like immediately say, oh, well the church has replaced Israel. And then you have other people on the other extreme who they're like, no, Israel's God's chosen people, but they can't explain why. You know, they're just like, they'll just like quote Genesis 12 and that's it. And they'll be like, well, it says that God, you know, Israel was chosen by God, and like, but they can't explain why, and it just becomes more like a political point, to where it's like, I'm a Christian, therefore I support Israel. It's like, okay, but why do you do that? And to me, it's like, well, no, I think there's biblical reason, but we need to flesh that out, and I don't think enough people do that. But.
Agreed. Okay, we can probably move on to the second half of this chapter, Edom and Philistia. Thus says Lord Yahweh, because Edom has acted against the house of Judah by taking vengeance and has incurred grievous guilt and avenged themselves upon them. Therefore thus says Lord Yahweh, I will also stretch out my hand against Edom and cut off man and beast from it, and I will lay it waste, from Teman even to Dedan they will fall by the sword. I will lay my vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people Israel. Therefore they will act in Edom according to my anger and according to my wrath. Thus they will know my vengeance, declares Lord Yahweh. Thus says Lord Yahweh, because the Philistines have acted in revenge and have taken vengeance with scorn of soul to bring ruin with everlasting enmity. Therefore thus says Lord Yahweh, behold, I will stretch out my hand against the Philistines and cut off the Kerethites and cause the remnant of the seacoast to perish. So I will execute great vengeance on them with wrathful reproofs, and they will know that I am Yahweh when I lay my vengeance on them.
So they took these guys actually took action, didn't just judge. Or these two nations, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So in here, you're the punishment's pretty much the same, even though the language is a little more explicit and direct.
Yeah, so what does he accuse Edom of?
Edom took revenge on Judah and became very guilty. So they essentially attacked while Judah was down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It seems interesting because I don't know if y'all remember when we went through Obadiah.
Yeah.
Obadiah is only one chapter long. And people debate about when it was written because there's nothing within Obadiah that specifically spells out when it was written, right? And so, but Obadiah was written against the people of Edom. It's one of the few books of the Bible that's written to somebody outside of the land of Israel. And the main thing he's getting onto them about is that they did not defend the people of Judah during their time of need. And so people debate about when it was. Some people place it earlier on in Judah's history, but I think there's a compelling case that you could make that Obadiah was around this time period because it seems like the accusation Ezekiel is raising is very similar to what Obadiah says.
And I can see that. I do think it's interesting. That's why I kind of read them separately, is because it seems like the accusations against Philistia and Edom are a tad bit different. Mm-hmm. I do think it's interesting to me, I don't know if I'd say that he's necessarily holding them to a higher standard, but Ammon and Moab, all they really did was kind of just mock. I mean, I'm sure they did more, but at least here, they're mostly just responding to Israel a certain way. Whereas here, it seems like God expects more from these two nations, to where, he's accusing them of taking vengeance into their own hand, and it says avenging themselves upon them. Which vengeance and avenging yourselves, that's the idea of retaliation, not even just attacking out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's he expected them to forgive.
Yeah, I guess that's the way that I would that's the way it kind of reads to me. By taking vengeance, and if you ever see that in scripture, God says, "I will take vengeance and I will avenge them upon myself." To where it seems like God expects them to know that vengeance belongs to Him in a way. I just think that's interesting because it seems like He kind of expects more out of them. Which Edom, it makes sense a little more because we've kind of seen multiple times in this Bible study that it seems like God kind of views Edom in like a way a bit different than other nations, to where he is kind of like the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
No pun intended, but
it's funny because it is Edom with redheads. That's
funny. Just kind of came to me.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Israel, to where it's like he doesn't hold them up to like the Torah, or he doesn't expect them to like follow every single law, but yet he does treat them like as if like they could be so much more. To where like you don't really see him talking like Egypt being like, you could have been so great, but like you abused what I gave you. It's like Egypt's just like, you're wicked, or it's like even like Moab and Ammon, he's kind of just like, yeah, y'all aren't that great. But it's with Edom specifically, it always seems like there's just this hint of like, y'all could have been so much more.
Yeah.
Or it really does have like that Esau feel to it. Like Esau could have been so much more.
Yeah.
But he didn't really value what God gave him.
Well, it is interesting how the patriarchs of the different nations really do set the mood for their nation as a whole. To where like Jacob wrestles with God constantly, and like, he's chosen by God, and God is faithful to him, and in the end, he inherits everything. But like, his whole story from beginning to end is just like not being faithful. And then you got Esau, who like, it could have all been his, but he just didn't value it highly enough. Whereas like Jacob valued it, and so it was his, but then he just wasn't faithful. Like, whereas like, it is funny how that really sets the mood for like Israel's history and Edom's history, to where Edom does get this like red-headed stepchild treatment, where God's like, you were, I don't know, like he holds it to a higher standard, and I'm assuming the reason he would hold Philistia to a higher standard is probably because
with King David, right?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I think it's probably because they were in such close proximity. Because like Ammon and Moab, they did come into conflict with Israel a lot, but sometimes we overlook. I mean, the Jordan River is really small.
Yeah. But
we overlook like how significant like rivers are as boundaries, and so while they did come into conflict with them, they weren't like the main antagonists. Whereas the Philistines were like, they had a long and checkered history with Israel, to where they were their primary bad guys and enemies like for a long time. To where it seems like, and they lived in the midst of the land. To where the Philistines never really had like defined borders. They had like 5 chief cities, and then they were constantly just like, invade. Like the word Philistine, I'm pretty sure really just means like invader. And so that's why some people think that there's some of the sea peoples who came from like the sea.
Especially, I guess people don't always associate like the Philistines and like Genesis is the same as later texts.
Yeah, some people speculate that like that might have just been like a previous group of people who like lived in that territory.
Yeah, but especially if you did consider them the same people, I mean, early on, that's actually like pretty positive history with Israel.
Yeah.
Especially from like a patriarchal standpoint, like because that is during the patriarchs. Yes. Like Abimelech is actually like making covenants with them, to where, at least in theory, they should have a better idea of like, who Yahweh is and stuff.
Yeah, because they've been with them since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense why he would hold them to a bit of a higher standard, but I do find that interesting.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. Also, kind of like a random thing, but there's like a lot of funny alliterations in here. Grievous guilt, and then it was.
And like English.
Yeah, grievous guilt, scorn of soul, everlasting enmity, and wrathful reproofs. I thought that was like so funny.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
It was a little bit distracting.
I was hoping they were going to be in Hebrew.
I
love wordplay in Hebrew.
That would be even cooler if it was like they translated to like match the alliteration or something. But I actually didn't even notice it until I was reading this time.
Oh man, it is strong language though. In verse 15, when it says they have acted in revenge and have taken revenge, it's like the Hebrew is literally like it's just the word revenge 3 times back to back.
Really?
It's literally just like the Philistines in revenge have taken like that they like it's to do it as woodenly as possible. It'd be like in revenge they have avenged themselves with vengeance. Like
I see.
Or like in revenge they have revenged with revenge.
Yeah.
Like it's like okay like that gets across the
wow. It's the point across.
But the other stuff doesn't alliterate as best I can tell.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And then in both of these sections, they kind of end pretty much the same as the other ones, but I do think it's interesting. Like here it says, "Thus they will know my vengeance, and then thus they will know that I am Yahweh when I lay my vengeance on them."
Yeah.
Um,
Which is weird because the previous one said this thing on Yahweh,
Yeah.
whereas this one of them says that, the other one says that they'll know my vengeance, but then the one that says it says when I lay my vengeance. So it combines it all together.
yeah, just interesting.
And that's all fulfillments of Deuteronomy 32, right? Where like he says, "Vengeance is mine."
Yeah.
This is what he means. He's saying, Israel, love your enemies, take care of people. You don't need to take vengeance into your own hands. I got you. And so this is the fulfillment of that.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 for mockery, 2 for vengeance. And I guess the only thing that probably is worth mentioning, but with Edom specifically, it mentions like that his people are going to be the ones enacting his vengeance, which I just thought was interesting too. I will lay my vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people Israel.
Do we know how that's fulfilled?
I kind of wonder. I think we've talked before. Wasn't there a whole thing with Edom and Israel after the exile?
I feel like there was.
That was the thing with like Samaria and stuff, huh?
Yeah, it's not fresh in my head.
Yeah, it's not either for me.
They're brought up in Malachi. I'll look into it.
Yeah, I think we did. I knew there was something about them like kind of fighting over the land.
It's crazy. Edom shows up, like the word Edom shows up less than 100 times in the Bible.
Wow.
That's weird because of how much they get brought up. Like,
Yeah, interesting.
it actually shows up exactly 100 times. That's crazy.
It's kind of fun.
No, I was going to suggest that maybe it's during the time of the Persians, because under the Babylonians, they're still in exile. In Israel and Judah, they're really not doing too much in terms of like expanding. But then under the Persians, it's not as strict or as tight of a rule. They're not really they're allowed to be brought back, rebuild the temple,
Yeah.
or at least start the process, I should say.
Yeah,
So
well,
it might be in there.
Yeah. Well, I think it was like an ongoing thing. Like I think it was a long period of time that they kind of fought over the land, but yeah, it doesn't mention them specifically in the Philistia section. It would just be maybe assumed, but
Yeah.
What are y'all talking about?
he was just saying like about like when that would happen.
And
What would happen?
Israel God judging Edom via Israel.
Yeah, as best I can tell, it doesn't say anything about it
Yeah.
in Scripture. But
No, I was saying that I think it's in the time of the Persians, because when they're under the Babylonians, they're still in exile, and then when the Persians come to rule.
well, I
They
think
have
the
to
thing
build
is we would
that.
just be speculating. We just have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe archaeological evidence, but anyway, we can move on.
yeah. What time is it?
850.
8:50.
So I mean, we could probably do 26 if we just did an overview of it.
Yeah. I would say I don't really care either way. Y'all want to just go for it, or do y'all want
I'm fine with that
to?
if
Okay.
you want to.
Because to be
I
fair,
mean, after that, it kind of goes into Tyre for a while. But
yeah. So we could either start with all of Tyre next week, or we could do one chapter of
Yeah.
Tyre and then.
I'm fine with doing this chapter just because it seems like the other chapters are pretty long, and
Yeah.
I doubt we'd be able to get through all of them in 1 week, anyways. So if we got through this chapter today, we might be able to get through chapter 27 and 28 next week.
Yeah, let's just go for it.
Yeah. It is a 21 chapters, but a lot of it we can probably go through pretty
Yeah.
like especially the first 2/3 of it is pretty straightforward. Now it happened in the 11th year, on the 1st of the month, that the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of man, because Tyre has said concerning Jerusalem, Aha, the gateway of the peoples is broken, it is opened to me. I shall be filled, now that she is laid waste. Therefore thus says Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against you, O Tyre, and I will bring up many nations against you, as the sea brings up its waves. They will make the walls of Tyre a ruin, and pull down her towers, and I will scrape her dust from her, and make her a bare rock. She will be a place for the spreading of nets in the midst of the sea. For I have spoken, declares Lord Yahweh. And she will become plunder for the nations. Also her daughters who are on the mainland will be killed by the sword, and they will know that I am Yahweh. For thus says Lord Yahweh, Behold, I will bring upon Tyre from the north, Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, king of kings, with horses, chariots, horsemen, and an assembly, a great number of people. He will kill your daughters on the mainland with the sword, and he will make siege walls against you, cast up a ramp against you, and raise up a large shield against you. The blow of his battering rams he will direct against your walls, and with his swords he will tear down your towers. Because of the abundance of his horses, the fine dust raised by them will cover you. Your walls will shake at the noise of horsemen and wagons and chariots when he enters your gates, as men enter a city that is breached. With the hoofs of his horses he will trample all your streets. He will kill your people with the sword, and your strong pillars will come down to the ground. Also they will make a spoil of your wealth, and a plunder of your merchandise, and pull down your walls and tear down your desirable houses, and throw down your stones and your timbers and your debris into the water. So I will cause the tumult of your songs to cease, and the sound of your harps will be heard no more. I will make you a bare rock. You will be a place for the spreading of nets. You will be built no more, for I, Yahweh, have spoken, declares Lord Yahweh. Thus says Lord Yahweh to Tyre, Shall not the coastlands shake at the sound of your downfall when the wounded groan, when the killing occurs in your midst? Then all the princes of the sea will go down from their thrones, remove their robes, and strip off their embroidered garments. They will clothe themselves with trembling. They will sit on the ground, tremble every moment, and be appalled at you. They will take up a lamentation over you and say to you, How you have perished, O inhabited one, from which the seas, O city that was praised, which was strong on the sea, she and her inhabitants, who imposed her terror on all her inhabitants. Now the coastlands will tremble on the day of your downfall. Yes, the coastlands which are by the sea will be dismayed at your departure. For thus says Lord Yahweh, When I make you a city laid waste, like the cities which are not inhabited, when I bring up the deep over you, and the great waters cover you, then I will bring you down with those who go down to the pits, to the people of old, and I will make you inhabit the lower parts of the earth, like the ancient waste places, with those who go down to the pits, so that you will not be inhabited. But I will set glory in the land of the living. I will bring terrors on you, and you will be no more. Though you'll be sought, you will never be found again, declares Lord Yahweh.
So essentially we have Babylon coming in and enacting judgment against Tyre on behalf of Yahweh. And he's saying that they're going to become like, when he uses the terminology, fishnets, right? So Tyre's a coastal city. To me, it sounds like they're going to be desolated and everyone's just, they're going to be so bewildered that everyone's just going to come in and be able to loot them willy-nilly. Like kind of like when I throw my cast net, right, to get bait, and I'll just throw my net, and I'll get a whole net full of fish. That's what it's going to be like for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it says that you'll be a place for the spreading of nets, like the nets being like the other people coming in, like and like capturing them and taking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the imagery I was envisioning.
Yeah, and it's specifically describing like language of like a siege.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where like Nebuchadnezzar's going to lay siege against them, and over time he's going to take them out.
Yeah, and honestly, that middle section where it talks about the siege is very similar to the way that the siege of Jerusalem is described, to where it talks about like the siege ramps and all of the other things, all the horsemen coming in and trampling the streets.
Yeah, I do find this very interesting though, just because, like, the amount of attention he's going to show to Tyre. It's just like we were talking about this before we started the Bible study, but like, I find it so weird because, like, Ammon, Moab, Edom, and Philistia have all been far more significant enemies against Israel and Judah than Tyre has. Yet they're just gone through very quickly, and then all of a sudden when we get to Tyre, he's like, now let me talk about you. And like, he's going to talk about it for several chapters. And I mean, chapter 28, that's where, I mean, we're going to have a fun discussion about that one next week, because that's the
King of Tyre.
The King of Tyre, where people start talking about like the devil and stuff like that. And I have opinions on that we'll talk about. But
Yeah.
but it's just interesting, like the amount of attention that's given to Tyre is significant. I don't fully know why that would be, other than possibly just to reinforce, I guess, the authenticity of Ezekiel as a prophet, because like this is a second siege that he is predicting, very similar to the siege of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And like it's, I don't know, it's taking place around the same time period to where I don't know, there should be something to that, but I don't know why it is that like so much attention is shown to Tyre when they just really haven't been big players in the Bible.
Yeah. So they've been mentioned at least once since 1 Kings, but was 1 Kings the first mention of Tyre?
Oh, I can look it up.
Because for sure I would say that that's probably the only major mention of them, which that's obviously like whenever the king of Tyre makes a covenant with Solomon and they help actually build the temple.
Yeah, they're mentioning like Joshua, like the border turned to Ramah into the fortified city of Tyre. Like it's just talking about like whenever they first conquered the land, like and they were like
the borders are like by Tyre or whatever.
So they've always, I feel like, generally been held in high regard. Like they're always well off.
Yeah, and then you have Hiram. You have Hiram, king of Tyre, who shows up during David's reign.
Yeah, that's true.
And
he makes a covenant with David, and then he continues it with Solomon.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's like really the only major mention of them.
Yeah.
Other than just existing before that.
Yeah.
And
then I mean, there's stuff against them in Isaiah, because Isaiah he preaches against Tyre as well.
That's true. I guess there's like what one small section of Tyre.
Yeah, in Isaiah 23.
That is curious though, like because Ezekiel gives way more attention to Tyre than like Isaiah does.
Yeah, and there could be something to this where we don't need to get into it at all, but one thing we always need to remember about prophecy is that there's always the short-term, long-term stuff.
Yeah.
And to where there's like sometimes a dual fulfillment where like there could be a short-term fulfillment of what's being said, but then also a long like eschatological interpretation. And I know that especially with Ezekiel, there's a lot of stuff, especially when we get to the end of the book, that is not going to be tied to short-term stuff almost at all. And so it's possible that a lot of the stuff being said here does have long-term implications in regards, like to where it might not be, the nation as you currently think of it, but that region, right? To where even like when it talks about like Israel laying waste to Edom, it's not mentioned in the Bible, but that doesn't mean that, there could be some future conflict where the people of Israel get into a battle of some sort with people down south. I'm not saying that is what's going to happen, but I'm saying like that is always an option that we can't overlook.
Yeah.
To where there could be some sort of future thing that could explain why so much attention is given to Tyre. I'm always hesitant to do that because that's when you start just getting into speculation, but
or at least
it's a possibility.
Or at least like making that like the number one most important thing.
Yeah.
I just thought this whole section is going to be very interesting. There's the first like 2/3 is that siege and their destruction being mentioned, and then the back half, I just think the whole thing's interesting. I didn't like look too much into like anything like if there's any like anything with like Hebrew or stuff, but just like verse 16 says the princes of the sea will go down from their thrones and mourn. I wasn't really sure what the princes of the sea would be there. This would be like just kings, like people from like nearby places, or like like Cyprus or like coastlands.
Yeah, that's why I would think it's like people who were engaging in commerce, because like since Tyre was such like a central place for like trade and like coastal stuff. Yeah. Whenever they fall, that's bad news for everybody. Like especially people who are engaging in that type of like trade. To where you have some of the stuff in like Revelation where like whenever it says like Babylon the Great falls, it says like the nations of the world are like, like they're not happy about it. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the people of God are like, yes, the wicked Babylon has fallen. But like for the people of the world, they're like, okay, our economy just collapsed. And so
that's fair, because actually that's kind of what we're gonna get into next week with like the king of Tyre and stuff, to where it's like it seems like Tyre was they were trading with almost everybody, and so whenever they fall, it would make sense, especially the people who are trading from the sea and stuff. Yeah, that they would be affected a lot.
Yeah, and the word there, it literally is just the normal word for prince, the normal word for sea. But another way you could translate that is just remember that the word for sea in Hebrew is the same as the word for west, because like the whenever you think of the coordinates of Israel, it's like the word for north is its own thing, and the word for east is its own thing, but the word for south is the word Negev, which is also just the southern region of Israel, and the word for west is just the word Yam, which is the word for sea because the Mediterranean Sea is to the west. And so it literally could just be the princes of the west. So basically just anybody engaging in like coastal trade, they're going to lament because Tyre is like the place you go to trade. And when it falls, there goes everything, like all of their connection to basically the Mediterranean, I guess the Levant area.
Yeah,
so.
That would make sense.
Yeah, and then that's where it explains like they'll take up a lament and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How have you perished, O inhabited one? It's like we thought that you were indestructible, but you've fallen.
They've gotten really prideful and cocky. Because, I mean,
well, this one I don't even think it's them being cocky. It's the nations have come to depend on them, right? It's like wow, we never thought that you would fall. Like we thought that, like it's not even like later on you will get to see Tyre being boastful, like the king of Tyre and stuff. But like here, it seems like it's more the other nations who were like shell shocked, like.
Yeah, we never thought you'd fall.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of like if the U.S. fell or something.
Yeah, well, it's almost like I think of like how, I guess like, how the nations felt on like 9/11. Whenever like that, it's like, oh, we didn't think that stuff like that could happen in America. You know, it's like, oh, like it's like shell shocked a little bit.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. And then the last three verses, or the last few verses, thought they were interesting. It almost sounds like he's like taking them down to like Sheol. He's like talking about like taking them down to like the pit.
Yeah.
Which I assume it just is more talking about like the water.
Yeah, I think the imagery like paves the way for that because, I think was I talking to the kids about this on Sunday? Like how anytime the Bible ever like has somebody going out on the water, it never ends well.
Yeah.
Like just and that's just because there's a genuine fear of the water at the time. I mean, even nowadays, like the water's a terrifying place. Like if you just sit for a second and think about like all the stuff, the unknown stuff under the ocean, and then like I don't know. Recently there was like that one thing that went viral of like a teenage lifeguard like saving a kid over in like I think it was like California, but like just like because like the waves just like water is powerful and it can just suck you in, and so especially in the ancient world, like. Whenever you think of like the underworld, you think of like the sea because it's just like the depths to where whenever you have like Jonah sinking into the water and he writes like the poem that he sings, he says, I was sinking down to Sheol and like the gates of the dead were there to open like that's like whenever you think of the dead, it's like the water.
Even like baptisms where like you go down in the water, it represents like death. It's like water in itself isn't bad, but when you think of like the waters, that's like it's like almost synonymous like with death.
Yeah, so whenever you're talking to a coastal place and you're trying to describe their destruction and how immense it is, you say, I'll drag you down to Sheol.
Yeah.
It's almost like, the imagery is almost kind of Atlantean. Like the idea is like you've got this amazing fortified city and it's now being like in the imagery of God's oracle, it's being like sucked down. And I imagine this is talking about mainland Tyre, because like with Tyre, we were talking about this earlier, there was an island of Tyre off the coast, but I'm pretty sure this is talking about like the mainland. Just because if there's a siege against it, I'm assuming it's like the city in the actual area, not the island. But if it was the island, it'd be even more Atlantean because it'd be like literally just the island almost like sinking into the.
Yeah, I actually got that vibe when I read it too. Initially, it was like, it's kind of funny.
But this is almost more like the idea of whenever people talk about like an earthquake hitting California and it sinking into the water, like that's got the same imagery.
It mostly mentions the mainland. Like when it mentions the siege, it talks about like them sieging on like the mainland and stuff.
The island belongs to Alexander the Great, not Nebuchadnezzar.
Yep. Anything else? I'll bring terrors on you, and you will be no more. That you will be sought, you will never be found again.
I like the fish net imagery, but that's just because I'm an angler.
But that language at the end there, it's like, man, God isn't kidding around in these verses. Like,
It's like
I will bring terrors on you, and you will be no more. Though you will be sought, you will never be found again. Like, it's easy for us, thousands of years later, to just be like, oh, well, that's crazy. But, like, imagine you were, like, there, and, like, there's this God who is speaking that against you.
Yeah.
That's like, oh.
People will look for you and they can't find you.
Yes. It's like yikes.
Oh no.
Yeah, the city that was so prominent that people would send boats across the Mediterranean Sea to reach you. They're not even going to find you anymore.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like the city of Troy. Like how for the longest time people thought that like the Trojan War was just an entire. I mean, it still could have just been entirely fictional, but like people thought that the city of Troy was fictional.
Yeah.
Because like we just hadn't found it, but then like all of a sudden archaeologists like discovered, oh no, this was like a really major city for a really long time.
Yeah.
It had just been destroyed so thoroughly that like it took forever to discover it. That it's kind of like that with Tyre. So yeah, people will look, they won't know where you're at, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other comments?
I guess my one comment would just be applicational in regards to the Ezekiel thing. Despite all that Ezekiel had to go through, especially with his wife and stuff, he didn't he probably complained and just didn't write it down.
Yeah.
But the fact that he kept serving God afterwards says a lot about like not only about him, but also what God expects of us.
Yeah.
Right? Like God doesn't say, hey, by the way, Ezekiel, is it okay with you if I do this? It's like, no, he says, I'm doing this and you're going to be fine with it. And I expect you to keep serving me. Like,
yeah.
Like what God expects of us is so much higher than like, I don't know, the average like thing that we hear in our churches nowadays. It's like, oh, just bow your head and pray a prayer. It's like, no, God expects so much more. To where he literally could, hypothetically, I mean, he has, there's been at least one instance where he says, hey, your wife's going to die tomorrow and you're not mourning for her, and I expect you to just like keep on going, and then you're going to be mute for 2 years. And it's like that's hard, but like it's just important for us to realize like that might sound cruel, but it's not cruel, right? It's who God is, and it's all purposeful, right? He's not doing it like just to make Ezekiel suffer. He's doing it with a purpose. But to me, it communicates what God deserves and what the Bible wants us to recognize God deserves.
Yeah.
And how much we've just like lost sight of that nowadays. Like Jesus says, yeah, if you want to follow after me, you must hate your father and your mother and your brother and your sister. And he who does not love me more than them, not worthy of me. Like that's a very different message than we typically hear.
Yeah. And it's not like, on top of it also being about what God expects of us, it's also how we should, like what we should expect out of God. We're like, you know, especially like nowadays, let alone God striking his wife down. Just anyone has a loved one die, and that makes them question God, like existing. Let alone like God, there being like a good God out there. Whereas like this wasn't just Ezekiel's wife dying and having like a faith, like a crisis of faith. That God said, "I'm going to do this."
Yeah. And
then but the thing is like, Ezekiel didn't do anything to deserve it, but yet he was still like expected to be faithful.
Yeah, to me it like almost. Sorry, I don't.
No, you're good. I actually forgot my line of thought there, but
like to me it really just highlights how much we don't really stop to reflect on what we believe, because the fact that like people live so much of their lives, I guess like just ignoring that death exists, that the moment they have like a loved one pass, it's almost like they're blindsided by it. They're like, I never thought this could ever happen, and they're like, is God real? I'm like, wait, did you not know that your loved ones would eventually die? Like,
yeah,
that's always been very weird to me. And I'm not trying to seem callous, but like it has honestly always confused me, because like for me, I've always lived my life knowing like, yeah, like people will die. Like when my dad died, that didn't cause a crisis of faith, because I was like, well, no, like I knew my dad would die eventually. I didn't expect it to be then. I didn't expect it to be that way. But like that's just, I don't know. Like people just they spend like their whole life like just like living in like almost like this fairy tale land, and then the moment things get bad is the first time they've actually stopped to consider actual implications of believing in God. You know, it's like, well, no, like you need to be comfortable with that.
It's kind of funny. It's like before I became a Christian, I'd be like, sometimes I'd be like, is there even a God? And then like when my grandfather passed, I'm just like, thank you God for the time I got to know.
Yeah,
It's a completely. I mean, granted, I was still upset in both instances, but it was a complete shift of attitude in a way.
Yeah, but it's just interesting to me because it shows just how low we've set the bar. It's kind of like nowadays, like, we have to spend 99% of the time just trying to convince people that God exists, which is crazy because, like you'll notice the Bible never even has to do that. Like, there's not a single place in the Bible where they're like, hey, let me prove to you God exists. The Bible just presupposes that everybody knows that God exists. And even in Romans, Paul's like, yeah, everybody knows God exists. Like, it's evident in creation. Whereas nowadays, it's like the bar is so low where it's like people don't believe God exists. And then once they believe he exists, they expect him to just give them everything that they ever want. And then they, like, the moment that just it doesn't even have to be like a dramatic, traumatic thing. It's like the moment that just a little bit of hardship shows up, they begin to doubt God. And I'm like, have you not wrestled through the fact that, like, you still live in the real world? And that, like, the God that you worship, he doesn't ever promise to, like, change that. But then, like, you get to Ezekiel, and it's so much stronger. Where, like, God's like, not only am I going to let your wife die, I'm the one making her die.
Yeah.
And not only am I going to make her die, I'm going to demand that you respond in this way. And if you don't, we've got an issue. And, like, that, again, that sounds very strong. And, like, people are tempted to view that as cruel, but I think it's because we have the wrong view of God. Because we expect that God answers to us. And it's like, that's not who God is. Like, God is the creator.
Yeah.
We answer to him. And whatever he says goes. Like, that's just how it is. But then the rest of Scripture makes it very clear that he is good. And he has a purpose behind it. And he's not going to make Ezekiel do that unless he has a darn good reason. Right? He's not just doing it, to, like, treat people like puppets that he's playing with. But, like, I don't know. It's just very important because it means that we have to have a heightened view of God and a heightened understanding of what he might ask us to do. Because he's not just asking us to, like, bow our head and pray a prayer. He's not just asking us to, like, smile at people as we walk past them on the sidewalk. Yeah. He is asking us to literally be willing to do whatever he asks. And, like, that means, like, you can't get mad at God whenever you don't get your job promotion. You can't get mad at God if you get fired from the job. Like, it's like it's like, no, like, things happen. And sometimes he'll let them happen. Sometimes he will just outright make them happen. And sometimes you might be innocent in all of it, right? Ezekiel didn't do anything wrong. His wife didn't do anything wrong. It was the other people who did stuff wrong, and God used them to communicate a message.
Yeah.
And that's just like, it's very surprising, but Ezekiel doesn't treat it like it's surprising. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, it's something where he easily could have, like, spent several chapters, because I imagine for him it was very difficult. And he could have spent several chapters sharing his, like, journal entries, being like, this is the cost of following God. But, like, instead he just says, God told me this, and it happened, and I did it. And then he spends more time sharing the message to the people of Judah than he does actually focusing on what happened to him.
Yeah.
And that's because that's his job. His job is not to say, poor pitiful me, look what I'm having to go through following God. His job is to be a watchman. And so he does it, and they say, why are you doing it? And he says, here's why I'm doing it. And then, like I don't know, that says a lot, because it's like, it's just a very, very different approach than we take nowadays.
Yeah. And he had nothing that he was getting out of it. No clear incentive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not like God's like, hey, by the way, in 2 weeks, your wife's going to come back to life.
Yeah.
Or it's like, even like with, I'm thinking that we should go through the book of Job sometime in this group, because a lot of times people mishandle the book of Job, and they'll be like, oh, I know that Job lost his family at the beginning, but don't worry, he gets a family back in the end. I'm like, okay, all because you get a family back in the end, like, it's not the same family, right? It's like, the kids that died, they stayed dead. And yes, he has more kids, but it's not like a replacement. It's not like, oh God, hey, you can kill my wife so long as you can give me another one. It's like, that's not how that works. And so people misunderstand the book of Job because they almost make it sound like, yeah, God just made him suffer for a little bit and then he made it all right. It's like, well, no.
Like there were no real stakes. It was just a test that had no stakes in it.
Yeah, it's like that's, I guess that's the lesson you take if you treat it like a fairy tale, but if you view them as real people, it's like, no, there were stakes. And I don't know, but that's like just a big thing to me, like reading that thing with Ezekiel, how understated all of it is. It's like, I would expect, like, just what he went through right there, that deserves a book in and of itself. Like, just, I don't know, like, I want to read a biography on Ezekiel, or an autobiography about Ezekiel. But the thing is, I get the impression that if he wrote an autobiography, he'd probably just treat it the same way he treated it here. He's like, yeah, it was a thing that happened. And, like, I don't know, it's just, that's just cool to me. Whereas for me, it'd be like if God did that with Brienne, I'd be like, that would be the book. I'd be like, oh my gosh, this was the word. Like, it would be so horrible. But like with him, the way he handles it, it's just such like a humble way of doing. Like, wow, it's just crazy. Lord, please do not do that. Please.
It's like I've had things happen, and it's just like, I wish I could say this happened, I'm moving on, but no. Like, if you go on my phone, there's stuff that's happened. I've literally written like paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs about my emotions. I think you've seen some of that.
I have handled much less severe things in much more extreme ways, whereas Ezekiel handled like probably one of the most extreme things anybody's ever God's ever asked of anybody, and he just like handles it in a few verses. And is like, I did it. It's like, wow, that's amazing. But anyways, that was the other thing I thought was worth saying.
That was good. Someone want to pray us out? You be?
Go for it.
Thank you, God. Thank you for allowing us to, go through your word, get some further insights in your word. Just, help us apply what we learned into our lives and to better serve you. Your servant Ezekiel set a great example, even though hopefully none of us have to go through what he went through, but just knowing that if we have to go through something similar or under strenuous circumstances as he was, that we would handle it in a godly manner, and that we could be a light to the world and show that you are good. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.